Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the honor and pleasure of Seann Malloy, owner of Malloy Law Firm up in Baltimore. Well, actually, it's more like D.C., Maryland, Virginia area.
We're in Baltimore too, but yeah, the D.C. area.
Yeah. So the reason I wanted Seann on our show today is I've watched him grow his law firm over the last several years. And, I've watched him have some struggles, and then I watched him like really zap through. But the deal is he never gave up. And he's been in our Mastermind several years, and he just moved up to the 8-figure group, which means he's doing over 10 million in revenues. So welcome today, Seann. I appreciate you being willing to take time out and share with our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see you, Ken.
Yeah, man. So before we started, we were talking about, what was it like before you really started growing, and what was the thing that really got you started? So why don't you go back and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, sure. So you'd asked me when did I first start with Pilma. I remember because it was, I don't know the year, but it was when you were in Salt Lake City.
That was 2016.
2016. Yeah. So I really the first conference of any type, first dipping my toe into the world of law firm marketing and management and really trying to figure it out. And my firm at the time, it was me and one other lawyer, a handful of paralegals. And I really didn't have any system in the law firm. I really didn't have any marketing plan, a marketing budget. I was really nowhere. And I remember going to that conference and spending 3 days there. And it was just eye-opening. It was a whole other world of what big successful firms out there are really doing to grow and to have profitable law firms.
Yeah, we've been doing it now. This year, we're doing it May the 14th through the 16th.
Yep, I'll be there. Yeah, you got it coming up. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. I think we got over 42 speakers this time in 3 days.
Nice.
We're jamming a lot in there. So you left that conference, and I'm sure, like most people, when they leave our conference, they always tell me it's like drinking water from a fire hose, and they've got so much stuff they don't even know where to begin or what to do first. So what did you, after going to that conference, you went back home, what did you do?
I remember, so there was a lot to take. It's 3 days of just information being thrown at you, all the vendors. I mean, some of the, I had no idea this stuff was out there. I didn't know what an intake department was. I didn't know, all the different digital advertising firms and what these things cost and what's going into them. I remember the one piece of advice that stuck with me: go home and try to do at least 2 ideas that you come up with. You're going to look at your notes, and there's going to be hundreds of things that you've written down. Just try to do 2 of them. Don't get overwhelmed. And I remember I got back and opened up a backpack I'd taken with me, and it was just filled with vendor crap, that just shows you how blown away my brain was. I loaded everything in there. It was way too much information. And I remember what I did. I hired one intake person. Started with one intake person. And it's kind of weird because you think, well, the firm, it's tiny. Where do you put your resources? And that's, not many people with less than 10 staff and attorneys. One other attorney, whatever, we had 7, 8 non-attorney staff. That's a kind of a big step. And you might think, well, I'm not ready for that. We're not big enough to start an intake department. But it was a good decision. I just had one guy who worked 9 to 5, and I was buying leads from lead vendors, which you and I have talked about that. You know how I feel about those now, but that was our marketing source back then. It's our source of leads. And this guy just worked the leads, and we saw some growth.
So what does your firm look like now? How many lawyers, how many staff, how many people in intake?
We have 52 people total. We have 7 lawyers, and whatever that leaves us with, about 45 non-lawyers. We have a full built-out intake department, which is something I put a lot of effort and time into. And that's what I think has really helped us the most, the intake department. Our market, I don't claim to be the best legal marketer out there. I'm not. I'm learning all the time, trying things out, failing at things all the time. The intake department, we run kind of two shifts, a daytime shift and an afternoon evening shift. And then on the weekend, we have a weekend shift. And it's people in my office. They're not working remotely. They're not in another country. They're in my office. And we put a lot of effort into training them. We pay them pretty well, I think. We don't treat it as an entry-level position. We treat it as an important skill position in our firm.
And it is. It's like I was saying I had my monthly, hourly Ask Ken Anything. And I think it's the most important position in the firm because here's the deal. No cases, no law firm. I mean, that's it. Think about it. And I see so many people waste money trying to get more cases in, spending more money on marketing, when if they would just work on converting the ones that they've got already from what they've been doing. I mean, like we had one Mastermind member that increased, they went from 60% conversion to 88% conversion of their cases they wanted. And they signed up extra to 200 cases that year. And you figure just at $10,000 average fee, that's $2 million.
Yeah.
And they spent like $80,000 on 2 intake people, right? I mean, that's a pretty good return. 80,000, 2 million. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer, but most lawyers overlook it. And I think very smart on your part to come home, first thing to do, and you're never too small. I've convinced solo practitioners to hire a dedicated intake person, and it made them money. I mean, because if they could just average 1 extra case a month, they're going to triple pay for themselves. And if they get 2, then I mean, it's like a 7 times return on investment. So I mean, very smart on your part. And so when did you join the Mastermind? I know you've been in the Mastermind several years. How long? You remember when you joined?
God, I don't know. So I was it must have been 2020 because I joined a Mastermind and we were about to have an in-person meeting. And then COVID happened.
That's right. I remember that.
Remember, I was the worst presenter you've probably ever seen.
No, you weren't bad. You always had technical difficulties with this. You weren't a bad presenter. You just had technical. That's right. Yeah,
but the Mastermind, I mean, that's been really great, really wonderful, the Mastermind. I mean, you learn so much doing that. And especially, I mean, the in-person is doing it remotely. It's not the same. It's not the same experience because there's so much communication that just goes on, at lunch or over a beer or whenever, on the sidelines of those things. So much to learn and just getting to know all the other people. I've made some great friends out of the Masterminds, but I was in one. And then you formed another one right when we were about to go back to in-person meetings. And I got into that other one. That one I was in maybe 3 years or so. And, all those guys are great. I learned so much from them. And that's a really important thing to do. Everybody should try to do that some way, Mastermind. I mean, there's probably different ways to do it, but you provide a good way to do it. So
thank you. I try, man. I try to put people together that'll complement each other. You
do a great job. And, I approach it, I'm a giver. So I feel guilty if I'm just taking. So I always try to have at least one thing that's new and interesting. And I don't think anybody in the group has seen it or thought about it.
Yeah.
I try to give everybody at least one really good thing every time. So.
Yeah. And you do, and you give more than one thing. And, the thing I love about you is like you said earlier, you'll try something new, and if it don't work, okay, you learned that it didn't work. But when you find something that really works, then you pour the gasoline on it. And I think that's why I don't know what you were doing in 2016 as far as income, and I don't know what you were doing in 2020, but I do know that you're over 10 million now because you moved up to the 8-figure group Mastermind, which we have 3 different levels, under 2 million, 2 to 10, and now over 10. And the reason I do that is because I think you got different sets of problems. I mean, you figured out how to get cases, or don't you want me doing over $10 million in revenue? That's just the way it is. I mean, you got other problems, scaling problems, because unlike what most people think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but the bigger you get, it doesn't get. You really got to watch your margins because cost controls get out of hand if you're not careful. I mean, you really got to pay even more attention to it, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Things can go sideways quickly without you even realizing it, and you're dealing with much larger sums of money. That's absolutely true. And I'm looking forward to the new group of guys. And some of these firms are huge in this group. So looking forward to meeting those guys.
Yeah. Well, I always said you don't want to be the smartest guy in the room, or don't you keep learning anything, right?
There's no danger of me being the smartest guy.
Oh, I don't know about that. you've kind of proven yourself, my friend. I mean, a lot of people talk about wanting to do it, but you did it. So kudos to you. And I don't care, I know the mastermind helped a lot, but you still had to go home and implement.
That's true. You just try to do 2 or 3 things and make yourself do it. And I know you preach that and the other speakers. I've heard people say it a lot at your mastermind groups. It's not enough just to come here and talk about it and think about it. Go home and do 2 to 3 things.
Yep. In between the meetings, figure out, prioritize, figure out what will move the needle the most in your law firm or what you need the most improvement on, and go back and set that up. And over the next 3 months, 4 months, work on it. Get more than 2 or 3 things. What I found, Sean, and if you've ever tried it, you know what I'm talking about. You end up getting nothing done because you've got too many fires going. You can't keep them all blazing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I do that at Pillman. Our deal is never over 3 projects a quarter, and we set it out and we do a task list and the date. We do a thing. What's going to be done? Who's going to do it? And what's the date it's due? And we hold everybody accountable, and that's the way we get stuff done. And I'm sure that's what you do at your law firm.
Yeah, you don't want too many things going on at once or you're not going to get anything done. I usually have, maybe 2 to 4 big projects going on, and I don't start something else until I close those out or close most of them out.
Yeah.
So
what have you found to be the most, I mean, I know you've tried different things. What's working the best for you right now as far as getting cases in the door?
we're doing a lot of spending on Google ads. I've worked with a lot of vendors, some really great ones, and of course some that it didn't work out. And what I found is when you're working with vendors, try to learn about what they're doing and how you can do that, or learn enough about it where you could find somebody in-house that could do it and try to bring that in-house.
That's what you're doing now, right? You got it in-house.
What we're doing. Yep. We have a lot of our digital marketing stuff is in-house. And I'm kind of experimenting with offshore employees too, to a little bit, here and there. We're kind of figuring out how to work with offshore people, but dedicated in-house people just offshore.
Right.
So you can find some good talent in other places.
So what would you tell a lawyer that kind of like you were in 2016 when you went to your first PILMA conference? What would you tell them, like 1, 2, 3 things that you wish you'd known, that you had to learn the hard way? Or if you
Oh God, stuff's not going to work out. Keep trying things. The best way to learn anything is to fail at it. And that's going to happen. Things aren't going to work out. Don't be afraid of change. The world's constantly changing. Personal injury, the way people find cases, marketing, you can't be afraid of change, and it's going to change. You can't do things the same way you were doing them 2 years ago. You got to adapt. You got to keep up with what's going on, constantly learn. I don't know how many that was, and treat people right. I mean, one thing we've always with the staff, pay them well, treat them right. That's important too. Take care of your people.
Yeah, because you can't do it all. I mean, anybody that's successful probably has got some really good people around them, behind them. I know I've always said my success was geared to I hired a lot of people that were a lot smarter than me on certain things. I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty good marketer, but I hate management. I mean, I know how to teach it, but I don't like it personally because I want everybody to like me, and that's a terrible place to be in life if you're trying to hold people accountable. I'm more of an ideal guy, get down in the weeds and actually implementing something, I'm terrible at that. But I just hire people that are good at that and empower them and, like you say, pay them well and look after them and let them know that you care. Because this is one of my other sayings, they won't care until they know how much you care. And that's the truth.
Yeah, that's true. And I've had some really smart people helping me. I've had the very first paralegal I ever hired, probably the third person I ever hired is still with me. I have a lawyer who's been with me for 13 years. You're right. You gotta let people know that you care about their success and you care that they're going to make a lot of money and have a good life, and they'll stick with you. I'm not embarrassed to say a lot of these people that work for me are, they're pretty smart, more capable than me in many areas. So
well, that goes back. You need to, what I've always been taught and teach is, you got to know what your strengths are and leverage them, and then delegate out your weaknesses to other people. That's their strengths. That's how you grow any business. And it's a lot more sanity involved when you do it that way. Doing something that you don't like to do or not that good at it is a waste of energy, time, and It's unhappiness, I think. I mean, some things I just don't want to do. I'm not going to,
Yeah.
unless I have to. But yeah, so good deal, man. What do you think about, because I'm seeing, right now, you're talking about change. There's a lot of change going on with this
There
AI.
is.
What's your take on all this AI, man?
God, I don't know. It came out, I was kind of skeptical of it. And then I started to test it out more and try to dive into it. And I thought, oh, this is going to this is going to radically change everything pretty quickly. And that didn't really happen either. I think it's like a lot of things. It's not as big as we've made it out to be, but it's not nothing either. It's going to be slower. It's here to stay, and it's going to change quite a bit about the way that we do things. It's not as fast moving as we all originally thought, I think, but there's ways to use it. We use it for marketing, for content generation. We've been dabbling with it for chronologies for medical records, and we've been testing it out for writing demands. And we have plans to work with that a bit more, but it didn't change everything overnight. There's no reason to be afraid of it.
Yeah. I think I always analogize it to when the internet came out, and people started putting up websites, but a lot of lawyers just ignored it and said, oh, that's just a fad, da, 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 da. And it didn't take over overnight, but the lawyers that got in it, a lot of these younger lawyers, they were killing these older lawyers in towns that were doing a lot of TV, but they were killing, they were getting the big trucking cases, and they were doing pay-per-click and, organic SEO, and they were killing it.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of lawyers put their head in the sand and just ignored it. I'm like you. I don't know that it's going to be as big as we think it is. Maybe it will be. I think so. But I think you can't ignore it. I think you've got to look at it and examine it and let it kind of mature on out, because everybody now and their brothers promising the moon that they can do this and they can do that. And at the end, it'll all shake down, and there'll be some, some industry leaders, like there always does. But when anything new comes out, everybody's claiming that they're the best and all this stuff. And time will tell. I mean, the masterminds, we've got some people using certain companies for demands and stuff, and you're seeing which ones, there's a lot of companies doing that now, but you see which ones, the ones that are trying it out, they're letting us know which ones are the better ones and which ones to stay away from.
Yeah.
So that's another good thing about masterminds. You get to kind of run what's working, what's not working type of deal, not just marketing, but the management part of it. And I think it makes you look at your numbers at least every 3 or 4 months, because you have to fill out the forms when you come to masterminds now.
Yep.
I started with.
You're confronted with your own numbers.
Makes you want to know, makes you know what percentage of gross you're spending on staff and attorney compensation and marketing. And that's numbers you need to know. I mean, without knowing the exact dollar, but what percentage of gross, because there's certain guidelines that we preach it that you want to stay underneath, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's been a joy to watch you grow. I mean, I remember when you started, just like you, I can't remember the year, but because I've seen so many people over the years, and I've worked with so many law firms, but you always stood out to me as a guy that was willing to take risks and never gave up. And that's part of, I think that's, somebody asked me what's the key to success. I think you got to be focused.
You just said it. Don't ever give up, and don't be afraid to take a risk or try things.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that, I think.
Because I remember you tried TV and that didn't work for you.
Yeah, it didn't work, and so we try something else.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it in TV. That's certainly one way to do it, but
yeah, because I know you got to be signing up a bunch of cases, man.
Yeah.
You don't get to over 10 million signing up, 20 cases a month.
Yeah, like last year we did over 10 million. We did it with a lot of 5 and 6 figure cases. I mean, it wasn't some giant case. We had 3 cases in the 7 figures, but they weren't like monster 7-figure cases. I mean, we did it with just a lot of
doubles and triples, not home runs.
Yeah. Yep. So.
Well, that's the best way, because I've talked to some firms that had big hits get a $3 million fee, and that's $3 million fee, and that's great, but you can't depend on that every year. You keep depending on a home run. You got to be hitting the singles, doubles, and triples.
Yeah, you can map out what you're doing and forecast what's going to happen a little better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you started using these reports, not reports, but what software do you use?
So we use Captora, which is old software, but we're switching over to FileVine and Lead Docket. And we finally, you've heard me talk about that. We finally have made quite a bit of headway with it. So the reports, I mean, even if you have, software that doesn't have all the bells and whistles, you name the software that's case management software or intake software, really. And one reason, Captora has been around for a while. It's simple. It has a very good, effective e-signature function. It's got reporting. It's not terribly complicated, but it works. And it's like anything, you got to put good information into it.
Yeah.
And garbage in, garbage out. And one thing that's helped us a lot is we meet every 10 days, the manager of our intake department, the manager of the marketing department. And when you do that, you're forced to look at your numbers every 10 days. So if my cost per sign up case with Google Ads or your cost per click is, in the stratosphere, you can catch it early on. And we've had situations where, things went sideways and it was something we could fix, but you can't wait 30 days to realize that it's happening or you've lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
So
You got to have your pulse on the firm, what's going on. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're not guessing, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the big deal. A lot of lawyers, well, yeah, I think I sign up every case I want. Yeah. Well, how many cases you got? I'm not sure. Or how many you got in litigation? Well, I'm not quite sure. If you don't know those numbers, that law firm's running you. You're not running a law firm, I can promise you.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got to know, your percentage of your people who contact you. You got to know what percentage of cases you want, your conversion rate. You got to know what that should be. I think you should be over 20% of cases you want converting. You're doing pretty well if you're doing that. Or no, I'm sorry, over 90%.
Yeah.
An over 90% conversion rate, but you want the leads or the potential clients that contact your firm, you want 20% of those to be viable cases that you want. Yeah, and you have to look at your numbers and make sure you're constantly looking at them. And
yeah,
we do that every 10 days. We still do it. It's
good deal, man. Well, listen, I guess we're towards the end of it. Anything that you want to say that you hadn't said, or anything advice you want to give lawyers out there that feel like they're stuck, but can't get to the next level?
Join a mastermind group. Go to a conference. You don't have to go to every conference. There's so many out there.
Right.
If you want to, you could go to one, every other week. I liked your stuff. I just stuck with it. Pilma, I thought it was great. It was plenty of information. You're right on top of things as they happen and change. Try get out of your law firm and go to a conference or join a mastermind and get away and stop working on your cases and take in what everybody else is doing and new ideas and go back and try one thing or try two things. But it's not enough to sit around and talk about things and hear things and think about it. You got to go back and do it.
Yep. Nothing happens till you take action, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good advice. I mean, you're right on it. I mean, the deal is, what I'm hearing you say is you got to stop and take a break from working in your business and start going out and figure out how to work on your business. And, I tell people when they first join Pilma, I said, you really need to set aside 8 hours a week, but if you can't, at least set aside 4 hours. And then people say, I don't have time. No, we make time for what's important to us. So if you just say, I don't have time, then it's not that important to you. I mean, I caught myself the other day. I said, well, I want to do this, but I don't have time. And my wife looked at me and said, what do you tell everybody else? I said, you're right.
What do you tell them?
I can make time.
That's the female brain figuring how to say the same thing. What do you tell everybody else? She's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy. Yeah, but I mean, it's hard to do, right? You get yourself caught in, I don't have time. No, you make time for what's important. So, what I told her, I said, well, it's not important enough to me to make time then maybe. But she said, well, that's more realistic. That's telling the truth.
Yeah. And look at all these lawyers who have done it, who have big, incredible firms making tons of money. If they did it, somebody else that's determined could do it too.
Yeah. Well, I built one pretty fast, and I mean, I won't top of my class. I mean, I was okay. I mean, I was in the top third, but I definitely was not number one or valedictorian or salutatorian and that stuff. I mean, I'm like you. I just friggin' never gave up, and I tried a lot of different things, and some of them worked, some of them didn't. I did, and I never just, never gave up. Perseverance, man, is important. You just can't throw your hands up. There's always a way to get to where you want to get to. Sometimes it's harder than others. Sometimes it's more costly. That's the one thing I like about masterminds. I think you can get there a lot quicker because you can learn from other mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
And learn from other successes. I mean, you can pick that stuff, not just what's working, but not make the same mistake they made, you know?
Right. You're going to still make plenty of mistakes, but you can make less of them and learn quicker, surrounding yourself with people kind of the same position you're in, trying to do the same thing you're trying to do. And anybody who joins one of these mastermind groups, I mean, they're determined to build and grow a firm. So you're surrounding yourself with people who are similarly motivated.
Yeah. And they want to help each other. That's the thing I love about it. You know, the way we set it up, nobody's from the same market. So everybody's free flowing with ideas and they're really genuinely, I mean, I don't know if you have, but I know with different firms have visited each other's firms. I mean, in between meetings just to see how they're doing certain things. So yeah, it's great. Look, it's great to chat, and I'm so proud of you, what you've done, son. It's unbelievable. I mean, really.
Well, I appreciate all your help with everything. You've given me a lot of help to get here. So
yeah, but you know, like I said, I can lead a horse to water, but I can't make them drink it. And you're a take action guy, and you don't give up. So I think that's the key to your success. Really, I really do. You know, absolutely. So congratulations. All right. Listen, I hope to see you at the summit. You said you're going to be there.
I'm looking forward to it. I love New Orleans. You know, I lived there for 3 years. So your summit is my one chance during the year to get back.
There you go, man. All right. Well, take care. And until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success. Thanks.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.